I'm Jeff DeBelko, the Woodrow Wilson Center's Environmental Change Institute program. I'm very pleased to be joined by Jennifer Sciubba, who's a professor at Rhodes College down in Tennessee. And Jen, it's great to welcome you back to the Wilson Center. I would love to ask you about demography and security, a topic that you've written a lot about, researched a lot about, but you're also teaching it. How do you do that?
Well, I've taught it in two different circumstances. I've taught it as part of a course called Global Ecopolitics, all within the International Studies Department at Rhodes. And in Global Ecopolitics, it's really a course about the different forces that are changing and shaping the international world under that eco-political paradigm. And the other context is I have taught it as a standalone course, Population and National Security. And it was a very different experience both times. The Global Ecopolitics, I taught it as one of four things we looked at, one of four trends. We looked at the environment, population, disease, and then the fourth was sort of a technology globalization variable. And then at the end, we sort of brought them all together. And the Population and National Security course really just took that one piece from Global Ecopolitics and expanded it to fill a whole semester.
And tell me about the different kinds of students you've been teaching this to, and which themes are resonating with the different groups. Do you see a difference, or is there actually quite a bit of commonality across the different student types that you have?
Well, at Rhodes is a small four-year institution, and so we have very small classes to begin with. And I think that's important to note because I think these topics work best as discussion classes, and that's the way it has been. Although in a second we may get to it, I'll talk about the challenges of teaching as a standalone course and how it has to be a bit different. But I mostly teach to all undergrads, small classes of about 15 students each. And I've had other experiences at the University of Maryland, for example. I taught an Approaches to International Security course where the environment was one of the three approaches. They were still pretty similar because of the small setting. Now, I've talked about these issues to military audiences before, both here and in Europe, and I actually think that the one difference is that the military audiences already comes in with some knowledge of these issues. They're already familiar with many of the basics and with the connections that are supposedly there, so you can assume a level of knowledge about demography that the undergraduates have not had. You really have to start at the beginning and explain the fundamentals of what is population in the first place.
And so are there different topics that resonate within that umbrella of population? It occurs to me questions of migration or differential population growth rate, and then of course the numbers themselves. But how do you approach that mix of different topics under that umbrella term?
Well, both classes I went straight from the basics, fertility, mortality, and migration. So we looked at population, age structure to begin with, youth, and bonus window of opportunity when there are more workers than dependents, and then on the other side of the spectrum when there are more dependents than workers, which is population aging. And then we moved to talking about migration, and both in terms of international migration and urbanization. So really a separate focus on urbanization as well. And by splitting it up like that, I was really surprised to see that people were interested in all of those. So when it came time to write final papers, some people wanted to look at aging, some people looked at migration, some people looked at urbanization. Mostly they were interested in age structure, which also surprised me because we live in a country where migration issues are really at the forefront, and a lot of our students at Rhodes are from the South, maybe even from Texas, where they know a lot about migration, but they seem to focus more on age structure.
And then on the security side, when you brought the two together, how was the balance between a traditional narrow definition of security and a broader human security? How did the students fall down on that continuum?
Well, when I taught Global Ecopolitics, I didn't teach it from a security standpoint. I tried to be a lot more broad and say that in international relations, we're interested in all sorts of issues. One of them is peace and conflict. Others might be development issues. And so we really started from actually a Thomas Homer Dixon paradigm, thinking about, and Dennis Parage's, how they frame the world and the different questions that they may ask and the different variables. And then within each topic, environment, population, disease, we looked at how they might affect the economy or security or other areas, justice even. And so we tried to keep it much more broad. But the standalone course was specifically population and national security. And I found that it was a challenge to take something that is this very traditional security mindset that we're so used to in international relations, and that they have this certain idea of what it means when you say security, and try to overlay that paradigm on it. And I'm not really sure I have it figured out yet how to bring those two things together so that they don't say, what is the point of all this? And that was really the biggest surprise and a challenge I look forward to trying to fix. But in the population national security course, I tried to show them that we have a lot of unanswered questions. And when you tell students that there are a lot of unanswered questions, they often say, then why are we asking? Or what's the point? What is the point of this? So I think that's something that anyone would face who tries to teach this, that as you try to explain the mechanisms by which we get these national security outcomes, there's so much we don't know that you can face student frustration, because students like, here's a fact, here's the truth, let me memorize it, or make a few connections. But I don't want to hear that you don't know the answer to this.
Well, soon they'll learn that makes much more interesting papers for them to write. Well, Jen, we thank you for your insights and look forward to reading more of them in our Environmental Change and Security Program report, a publication that Jen has been a common contributor to.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.